RotoBaller, my co-host Nick Giffen of the Action Network. Iowa is in the books, and Nick, we were a little off. We both thought that Joey Logano would be the Penske driver that would get the first win in NASCAR's first visit to that racetrack. It was Ryan Blaney getting to victory lane, followed by William Byron, Chase Elliott, a couple of Hendrick Motorsports drivers there. Christopher Bell, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. rounding out the top 5 in that race. But overall, Christopher Bell came home with a top 5 finish, but Joe Gibbs Racing struggled quite a bit, and we're going to get to that and talk about that for a little bit. But overall, Blaney in victory lane, a very good race, over 90%, and Jeff Gluck's poll said that was a good race. Blaney led 201 of the 350 laps, and typically when we see that kind of, leadership and one guy leading, they don't get the good race polls, but it was a lot better than we expected. Both of us and a lot of the drivers thought heading into the race weekend last weekend that it was going to be awful and you wouldn't be able to pass. And I'll tell you what, that was some of the best racing. I know there's a big debate going on right now that will Iowa get another date next year? I don't think there's any. I don't understand why that's a question. They're getting another date. That race was great. The Xfinity race was good. Yeah, we had tire issues, but even without the tire issues, that race was just good. It was good racing. It was a good track. NASCAR finally did something right. Kudos to them, for actually getting a repave kind of right. Obviously, there's drivers said that they should probably extend that repave up a little bit more. But overall, though, Ryan Blaney in victory lane, he locks himself into the playoffs. Kyle Larson has a bad day. Denny Hamlin has a really bad day. Kyle Busch has a bad day. He's now back outside of the playoff standings. But Nick, what'd you think of that race?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a really good race. And I think that's why it got well above 90% in Jeff Gluck's poll, because we all saw it. We all saw it was a competitive race, a lot of compelling strategies, a lot of different comers and goers. And you could pass, you could pass for the lead, you could pass in the pack. It was everything you want from a short track race, side-by-side racing, close racing. And I've seen a lot of people say, like, it's what NASCAR really wants Richmond to be, but it's 7/8 of a mile instead of 3/4 of a mile. It's a little bit higher banked than Richmond, which I think helps. And obviously the partial repave, Richmond's gotten so worn that, while Richmond can be good, and there's a lot of different strategies with Richmond, the strategy element for Richmond has mostly gone away now that, the tires are wear out so much at Richmond, right? So you either do the 1 stop or you do the 2 stop, and those are literally the only strategies. But at Iowa, you could take 0, you can take 2, you can take 4, you could stay out, you could do all sorts of different things, and yet at the same time, you still had to manage your tires, even though you weren't really faster on newer tires, maybe a little bit. It was more like you just had to manage them so that, we didn't overload the tires and they started blowing. And because we did see the blown tires in practice, and they definitely weren't as much of an issue in the race as they were in practice. Still a little bit of an issue. We had a couple tire incidents for sure. But that's kind of like old NASCAR style. It's like you'd have 1 or 2 tire incidents in a race, and nobody really thought anything of it. So, I just thought it was a classic NASCAR race. I really liked it.
Yeah, it was. It had a lot, and like I said, it had the surprises. Like Joe Gibbs Racing, they were not good, and no one really expected it. We all expected Kyle Larson to have a rocket ship. He did. Got caught up in that issue with Daniel Suarez. He ended up finishing 34th. But Larson probably had the best car in that race. Blaney was definitely up there, but Larson, just watching him cut through the pack. And overall, like just the presentation overall, was our first race back with NBC. They did, comparatively speaking to Fox, they did a phenomenal job. Like you could nitpick a few things here and there, but NBC did a really good job of presenting that race and everything that came along with it. Justin Haley gets another top 15 finish. Carson Hocevar was in the top 15. Todd Gilliland comes home with a 12th place finish. Our 36 for 36 pick last week. And Josh Berry, who, I was like, when I was like doing a little bit of research on race day, I noticed that he's really popping in these short flat tracks, especially this year. Did not bite on him. He was like plus 120 for a top 10. I didn't bite on him, but he led 32 laps. He was running I think he had the third best average running position in the race, maybe fourth. Like legitimate strong race for Josh Berry. That team is really finding a groove right now. And when we talk about New Hampshire, he's going to be one of those like mid-tier guys that I'm really looking at this weekend. But overall, Blaney locked in the playoffs, like I said, and now it gets even interesting when we look at that. But before that, do you think, like I said, do you think there's any chance that NASCAR doesn't go back to Iowa next year? I know I saw on who's our boy, the one spotter that we like, Brett Griffin, on their podcast today, he was talking about that there's rumors going around about next year's schedule, and it's going to be like tons of big changes. But one big change that I just don't see happening is them taking a race away from Iowa. Like sold out crowd, great race. There's no chance that they're not going back.
Yeah, they're 100% going back. I don't think there's any issue in my mind of that happening. And just wanted to shout out a couple other strong races. Daniel Suarez, first top 10 since Texas, and that one kind of fluked into a top 10 there at Texas, but he was a top 8, 12 car all day. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., once he got track position, he was really good. Top 5 finish. We mentioned, obviously, Todd Gilliland, the 12th place there. That was his third highest point scoring race of the year. So we definitely both picked a good week to pick him on 36 for 36. You mentioned Justin Haley, great race there as well. And Harrison Burton getting his first top 20 at a non-super speedway, or I should say non-drafting race, and it was exactly 20th. So if that's his ceiling, not good, but congrats on your first non-drafting top 20 this year.
Right. And speaking of rumors, a rumor going around now is that Justin Haley might be a contender to go over to Wood Brothers Racing. But the big news that dropped that a lot of people expected at Iowa, Martin Truex Jr. is retiring after this year, which now opens up silly season even more, as there's now another seat available, the number 19 for Joe Gibbs Racing. A lot of people pointing to Chase Briscoe as the likely driver to take over that. Obviously, nothing's set in stone. There's a lot of ways that Joe Gibbs Racing can go, but something in my gut just tells me that it's going to be Briscoe, which I don't know. To me, he doesn't really fit into Joe Gibbs Racing and their drivers. I don't know. I'm just not a Briscoe fan.
I remember a few weeks ago, I was pegging him before Corey Heim kind of became a thing with 2311, and I was kind of thinking maybe he would go to 2311. He kind of fits that mold, which is a sister team to Joe Gibbs Racing. So it doesn't surprise me that he's going to Joe, but likely from the rumor mill going to Joe Gibbs Racing. But there was the time where he was rumored to be in the 21 car to replace Harrison Burton as the leading candidate for that. So Briscoe himself said on Sirius XM NASCAR radio, I think it was on Monday, may have been today. It was either yet today was recording on Tuesday evening or Monday, but he said he has multiple offers. So that's a good thing to be wanted. So he'll be in the Cup Series next year. It's just a matter of where will he be, which team.
Yeah, and that's it's quite the difference from comments from like Noah Gragson, because Briscoe said, he has multiple offers on the table, whereas Gregson's like, I just hope to be racing on Sundays next year, which says like, points to nobody's really going after him, which, there is that Bass Pro Shops connection of maybe he's a potential candidate for the 19 bringing in Bass Pro Shops. But I think Pockrass also said that there's no guarantee that Bass Pro stays with Joe Gibbs Racing. So definitely something to consider and look at over the course of the rest of the season. But as far as Joe Gibbs Racing goes, like I said, they were not very good at Iowa. And do you have any concerns with that? Because we're going to New Hampshire now, which is Joe Gibbs Racing has been stellar at New Hampshire. Whereas, Hendrick Motorsports has struggled quite a bit, but Hendrick Motorsports has been really good on the short flat tracks this year. So another thing to look at this weekend. But any concern that the Gibbs cars were off this past weekend, or was it just one of those races where, that occasionally fucking happen?
Yeah, it can occasionally happen, especially with a new track. Look at Gateway. Christopher Bell was the dominant car at Gateway until his engine started going sour. Even more than Blaney was dominant, who, they were definitely the 1-2, and Cindric was 3 there. But Denny Hamlin still finished second at Gateway. That's kind of a shorter, flatter track, even though it uses the intermediate package. Look at Martinsville. Denny Hamlin won a stage. Look at Richmond. Danny Hamlin won the race. Look at Phoenix. Christopher Bell dominated part of that race, and Denny Hamlin dominated part of that race. So I think they're okay. I think it was more of a new track thing that they didn't quite get it. And, even to that point, Christopher Bell still pulled off a top 5 and probably had a better car. I mean, he was arguably the best in practice.
Something fucked up. Yeah, something screwed up. My computer crashed.
Weird.
Or not my computer, but is it still going on? I don't know. It's still live, I guess. But on my end, it's okay. So we're just going. All right, keep going. No, on my end, it says it's not recording. So I honestly have no idea what the hell's going on.
I see 11 minutes and 10 seconds on our recording. So, and it says I click the arrow. It says Jordan and Nick. So
okay. We'll see.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Can we go one week this summer without fucking issues? That would be amazing. How about that?
That would be amazing.
Oh God. Okay. Sorry.
No, you're good. So I think it's more of a new track thing, and Christopher Bell, he had arguably one of the best cars in practice. I know at the time that he blew his tire in practice, he was leading 5 lap, 10 lap, etc. And people ended up improving on it, but the track also improved throughout the practice session. So you have to think Bell would have improved as well. And then he had to come all the way through the field in a backup car and still finish 4th. So I don't think it was as doom and gloom for JGR as it seems. Ty Gibbs was coming through the field. He looked strong. I actually live bet him really early on with just a small live bet. But it was just one of those things where I think, Ty Gibbs looked really good. Christopher Bell looked really good. Hamlin and Truex did not look amazing, although Truex did come through the field from his starting in the rear. So I think it's fine. I think it's partly a new track, partly some tire issues they had. So maybe they're a little less aggressive on it, knowing they had Ty Gibbs and Christopher Bell having tire issues in practice. And once you start backing off on your tires to make sure they don't blow in the race, you lose performance, right? You don't have the right cambers. You don't have the right pressures, which are all things you need to have optimal performance until the tire pops. So I think it was just a weird situation, but I think JGR is going to be super strong in New Hampshire.
Oh yeah. One interesting thing with Bell was they sucked on sticker tires, but as they got into the run, he was stupid fast. Yeah. And he made a specific point to let Adam Stevens know. Adam Stevens also, he kind of really went off on NASCAR for throwing that caution for Daniel Hemrick just tapping the wall, which changed the course of the race. That was the tire issues came into play, and then these random cautions also changed the course of the race because early on, I think it was Larson that was leading early, but he was putting a bunch of cars a lap down, which saved guys like Todd Gill and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. They were all a lap down up until that first caution. They kind of got saved there, which allowed them, to get the finishes that they did. So we saw a lot of comers and goers in this race. And I don't know. I'm not sure there are many things that people can find to complain about that race outside of the random bullshit cautions that NASCAR decided to throw.
Yeah, exactly. But that is almost something you expect from NASCAR right now these days.
Exactly.
But yeah, and it's definitely not reflected in the poll either, right? When 92% of people or whatever are saying good race, very few are worried about that caution, even though it was a BS caution.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of another caution in that race, Daniel Suarez getting into Kyle Larson, which took out Larson's day, probably took out the best car. The more I look at it, Daniel Suarez immediately, and even after the race, said there's no way that it was his fault. Yep. I don't know what did he have his eyes open? He clearly fucking lost control of his car and got up into Larson. There was no, obviously Larson didn't have to make it 3 wide there. Larson could have, waited, but also you have to take those opportunities when you're trying to get through the field and you have that good of a car.
Exactly.
But for Suarez not to be like, yeah, I got loose and hit him was just mind blowing to me. But like you said, Suarez did have a really good race car. He was running solidly up there in the top 5 at times. I like, obviously we don't know for sure, but we're thinking that he's been testing. I think that they might be back to, hey, we're trying again, which I think is going to give us some betting value. Right in this area right now, because like this weekend for New Hampshire, he's 5-1 to get a top 10. If he has a race car just like he did at Iowa last weekend, that car was solidly a top 10 car, so that would be a very good bet. But always little things there to pay attention to.
Yeah, definitely. And just another one where I feel, if he's 5-1 and we think that's pretty good, I feel really good about my Todd Gilliland 9-1 top 10.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he finished 12th. It's just the year I'm having, man. It's one of those years.
Whereas I lucked into Keselowski top 10, running 11th with 3 laps to go, and gets around Chastain for 10th there at the end, which was like my main bet of the weekend was Keselowski top 10. So yeah, just complete opposite seasons for you and I.
Yeah, and like I'm betting Toyota midweek to win, and Bell looks like he has the best car. And then Toyotas just have a ton of tire problems, and Bell's in a backup and starts at the rear. It's like it's been such a year, like an absolutely terrible year for me betting. So hoping to right the ship here, but yeah, it's been rough and definitely the worst year of my career, easily.
But you know what? We are on to race number 18, which is the official kind of halfway point of the season, which means if you can have that bad of a first half, there's plenty of time to turn things around here in the second half. Do you have anything left?
New Hampshire, like you said, New Hampshire is the race we hit Eric Almirola, or at least I did. I said it was Eric Almirola week, 80-1, and he wins the race at New Hampshire a couple years ago. So I feel like I've always had New Hampshire's number. I feel good about New Hampshire.
And it's always good, especially like right now during this little stretch here. There's a lot of similar racetracks. Like we just came from a shorter flat track. We're going to another shorter flat track. You could throw North Wilkesboro in there. They're throwing or they're using a similar tire compound for New Hampshire this week as they did at North Wilkesboro. Like there's a lot of similarities going around here lately. But moving on to the playoff picture, a lot of things happening. So Blaney locks himself in. So we now have 10 drivers fully locked in to the playoffs this season. Truex is good, plus 122. Chastain's plus 71. Gibbs is kind of on a cold streak. He's still plus 70, though. And then Bowman got another top 10 at Iowa. He's plus 66. So Buescher's now plus 27 on the cut line after he blew a tire, I think, or something happened where he was running top 5 and fell back late. Ended back 18th. Bubba Wallace 6 above the point line or cut line, and then we have Joey Logano -6, Kyle Busch -31, Briscoe trying to creep into that picture -44, and then our boy Todd Gilliland at 97 back from the cut line.
Yeah,
this it is, and it's we have how many races left? 11.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about
9 in the regular season.
Right. I did my math wrong there, didn't I?
Yeah.
9 in the regular season. Yeah. I still think Bowman and up is good. So we're left with the final 2 spots unless, someone outside the top 16 or like the current playoff drivers gets a win.
I still think Bowman, Gibbs, and Chastain have a little to be worried about, but not major amounts or anything like that.
Right. Well, absolutely. Like, yeah, the cut line moves up 1, and then all of a sudden you're being a little more conservative if you're those guys. But right now, I think they're just going out and racing.
And that's why I was so big on. I mean, look at Ty Gibbs. He was 7th in points right before Sonoma. We were saying he was good.
Mm-hmm.
And I said all he needed to do is get some stage points at Sonoma and get a finish. And of course, he DNFs at Sonoma. and has problems at Iowa, 25th place finish. And now he goes from 7th in the points, feeling pretty comfortable, to if he has 2 more races like that, he's going to be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I mean, he was one of those guys earlier in the season we bet to make the championship 4. Just the way that they were running.
Yeah.
But it shows you just how quickly the tide can change for these drivers. Yeah, 37th at Sonoma, 25th at Iowa. He hasn't had a top 10 finish. He was second at Darlington. That's his only top 10 finish since April. It was a second place at
Charlotte.
Oh yeah, I missed that one. It always messes me up when I'm looking and they have like North Wilkesboro in there, so I'm not counting that.
Yeah.
Exactly. I see that now. Yeah, 6th at Charlotte. You're right. But yeah, but still though, even going back to like the Richmond race, he only has 2 single-digit finishes over the last 11 races, which for how that team's been running is, and how they started off the season. I mean, he started off 17th, 10th, 5th, 3rd, 9th, and 3rd. All of a sudden they're just not getting the finishes, but we know the speed's there and they can easily turn that around. My question is, at what point do you think Kyle Busch is to the point where he has to have the mindset of he has to win? Or do you still think he's within striking distance of being able to points race? Obviously, that Iowa issue hurt him quite a bit.
He's 31 points back. That's not insurmountable at all. Chase Briscoe can point his way in if we don't get any outside of the cut line winners. I don't consider Chase Briscoe or Kyle Busch out of the points fight at all. I mean, we see in a 3-race round of the playoffs, drivers make up 30 points in 2 of the 3 races, let alone 3 of the 3. So yeah, I don't think
all
he
right.
has to
Next
win,
question for you.
He needs to gain, I mean, given the fact that he's 31 points out and there's 9 races left, he needs to gain 4 points per race. Is that doable? Absolutely.
Okay, next question for you. Can Todd Gilliland point his way in?
No.
With the way he's running right now?
He's running really well, but his upside has been a top 8, essentially.
Right. And he doesn't get the stage points, whereas Kyle Busch could actually get those stage points.
Like, if I compare Todd Gilliland to Alex Bowman, they're kind of the same, except Alex Bowman, you just shift him up by like an average of like 7 places, right? They don't have like crazy upside. I mean, Bowman obviously can win a race, but like his upside is he's an outside contender for a win. Gilliland's upside is he's an outside contender for a top 8 or 10.
Right. Yeah. Unless he somehow lucks into some strategy there. But
and speaking of Alex Bowman, still tied for the series lead in a number of top 10s, but he's 12th in points.
Whereas Chase Elliott now is the points leader after Larson's issues, still hasn't finished worse than 20th all year. 1 stage win and only 104 stage points compared to 186 for Larson, which is, obviously Larson has 1 last start, but I just feel like Chase Elliott,
6 drivers behind Chase Elliott have more stage points than him.
Yeah, but see, this is where it's interesting though, because Chase Elliott has 104. I feel like it's a very quiet 104 because Byron has 105.
Yeah.
And if we think about, if you compare the 2, you're like, yeah, Byron is significantly better than Elliott, but Elliott's just not fucking up, whereas Byron has had some issues this year.
Yeah. Byron has the bigger upside, but he's had more downside races for sure. And Elliott will have his downside races. They just haven't happened yet. But there will be. If he goes all year without finishing outside of the top 20, that'd be incredible. It might be one of the first.
Might be a record.
Times ever. Yeah. So you got to think, just law of large numbers. At some point, he will have a finish outside of the top 20, or a bad finish, or a problem hit him. It just hasn't happened yet. And even with all of the good, I shouldn't say good, the lack of problems he's had, he's still only 8 points ahead of his teammate who missed a race, and only 38 points ahead of Denny Hamlin, who has had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 finishes outside the top 20. So it's one of those things where, Chase Elliott just doesn't have the upside of these other guys right now. He has that 3rd to 12th place car every week, it seems like. But that's about it.
I saw another stat. I think I might have retweeted it on Twitter. It was about Ross Chastain and his year. He has, what is it? 2 finishes outside the top 15. Nope, 3. 19th at Kansas, 21st at Daytona, and 32nd at Texas. That's it. And I think he had issues. I was going to say he led laps in all 3 of those races. Yeah. So definitely not. But I see he's one of those guys though. Like he has 2 top 5s on the year and only 6 top 10s, but he has 3 finishes outside the top 15, and that's it. It's like just like crazy consistency, but also like I want to call it mediocre consistency.
Yeah, I mean, he and Alex Bowman have basically had the same year, almost the same number of stage points, almost the same number of total points, almost the same number of bad finishes as to top like 6 or 7 finishes. So, yeah, I mean, they've basically
that's actually a very good comparison.
Yeah, they basically had the same year. And if we're hearing rumors of should Alex Bowman be replaced at Hendrick, like I understand Trackhouse isn't Hendrick. And certainly for Ross, he's having a down year compared to the past 2 years. But like, I don't buy the should Alex Bowman be replaced stuff either, because when you've got 4 top 5s and the league leading top 10s, that's pretty darn good. Even though your teammates are all doing better, you're not doing bad at all. That doesn't mean you need to be replaced if you're 4th out of 4 on a really good team.
It's honestly pretty surprising to me that those rumors are going around that Bowman doesn't deserve a ride, because like, it's all because of who he. I mean, you're racing with Kyle Larson, William Byron, who are arguably 1-2 in the series right now. You can throw Hamlin in there, but definitely both top 3 right now in terms of talent and speed. And then you got Chase Elliott, who has suddenly came back to life a little bit, not back to where his championship level was, but back to life a little bit. And then like the fact that Bowman is just like still the 4th best on the team, but he'd still on any other organization be one of the top guys, if not the top guy, is I could not see.
Here's a bold prediction. I do think Bowman will be back in the 48 car, but if somehow he is not,
is his contract even up?
I don't know, but I've heard rumors, and we heard rumors about is Kyle Busch going to fill that JGR car? Is Kyle Busch going to go back to Hendrick Motorsports? What I think happens if Bowman's not in the 48 car, Kyle Busch goes to the 48. Noah Gragson takes Bass Pro Shops to Kyle Busch's ride, and so Richard Childress Racing has both drivers sponsored by Bass Pro Shops again, and Bowman goes somewhere. I don't know where. Maybe where that 3rd charter is, or maybe goes back to Xfinity.
That would be wild. But I will note,
but
Bowman.
I think he stays in the 48 car. I'm just saying, if he doesn't, that's my bold prediction.
Right. To me, it's and that would be all. Like, part of me does want to see that, but at the same time, like, even if this was a contract year for Bowman, I don't see them getting rid of him. But he did sign a 3-year extension last year, so he's good through 2026.
But we all know
and
how that stuff goes. There's ways to option out of that and stuff.
Yeah, but that's more other leagues than that. Like, that typically doesn't happen much in NASCAR, right? Compared to IndyCar and everything going on there.
Kyle Larson got fired midseason. I understand there's a very specific reason. Gregson got fired. Again, a specific reason. It used to happen a lot more without these specific reasons, but there isn't a reason that there's probably things in the contract that, like, we can break this contract for lack of performance, right? Mm-hmm. You can fire a driver, certainly. So,
and obviously it all comes down to money, but Allied did sign a 5-year extension, and I think they're pretty locked in on Bowman as well.
I think so as well, but I'm just pointing out, just because you sign an extension doesn't mean it's guaranteed.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, obviously, we're talking about Justin Haley potentially going to the Wood Brothers next year, which I forget what kind of year or what kind of deal he signed with Rick Ware Racing, but I will say, I I am so wrong on Rick Ware Racing. At the beginning of the year, I said that was the dumbest move Justin Haley could have made. I know we're only halfway through this season, but I am eating my words. They are surprising me every week and getting better every week.
He's tied with Daniel Hemrick in points, who was in his Colic ride last year. And Haley got disqualified from a race that he finished much better in. So he'd be ahead of Hemrick in points without that. And as far as the owner's standings, let me look at where the 16 car is. I think Toby Christie typically has the owner standings. 2024 owner standings. The 51 is ahead of the 16. Yeah. So Justin Haley, without the disqualification, would be ahead of both Colleague cars in the standings.
Last 6 races, Justin Haley, 18th, 9th, 22nd, 9th, 33rd, and 13th. The amazing thing there, Kansas, Darlington, Charlotte, Gateway, Sonoma, Iowa. No super speedways here. He probably could have done a lot better at Sonoma if they didn't have power steering issues. And all those other finishes, the 9th place came at Darlington. He finished 9th at Gateway and 13th at Iowa. Like, it is, to me, that is one. Him and Todd Gilliland are my favorite underdog stories this year. And I like I said, I just can't believe Rick Ware Racing is suddenly, like, they're not competitive. They're not going to go out there and win. But all of a sudden, am I looking at top 10 odds for Justin Haley every week? Absolutely, I am. And I think you have to.
The problem is the market is adjusted too. Like, he was like
exactly
4-1, 450-1 for a top 10 this past weekend.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah,
wild.
But the crazy thing, Gilliland was 9-1. Obviously, it changed post weekend. But like going into the weekend, I think Haley had shorter top 10 odds than Todd Gilliland by quite a lot, which was a little crazy to me because obviously Gilliland's overall been better this year.
Mm-hmm.
And not better necessarily as a driver. Obviously, both of them are great driving, but just he's in a better car.
I think a big part of that last week at Iowa was the fact that Haley was the quickest car in practice on Friday. You know, that definitely played into it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, both of them had great races, and I kind of want to see one of them steal a win here before the regular season ends. But I don't know if we'll get that. Anything else you got with the standings?
No, I don't. I think this is a interesting time of year for sure.
It is. This playoff picture, I think, is going to change every single week. Because hell, one more bad race out of Buescher, and all of a sudden he's not looking great. But I will note, last week, Bet365 had season long head to heads. They had Buescher minus 125 over Kyle Busch, which I was like, that seems really good. But now, like, you know, one race later, I'm like, it's probably a little bit closer than I thought because I'd still bet it. Like, if it was still up, I'd still bet that. I still think Buescher's going to finish ahead of Kyle Busch in the standings, but I think Buescher's going to make the playoffs. So I don't think Kyle Busch is, but it's interesting. But yeah, so Iowa's in the books. We're on to race number 18, New Hampshire Motor Speedway, Loudon. The Magic Mile, is that what this place is called? I don't know. Another short flat track. Yeah. And one that has been absolutely dominated by Martin Truex Jr. lately. Obviously, Joe Gibbs Racing overall has been very good here. We always have to keep an eye on Christopher Bell, but 2 races here in the next gen car. Martin Truex Jr. has led 426 laps in the 2 races combined. He's won all 4 stages. Nobody else has won a stage here in the next gen era other than Martin Truex Jr. He won here last year. Surprisingly, though, surprising to me, he's not the favorite according to sportsbooks this weekend. Despite the fact that Truex has had one of the best cars on short flat tracks this year, Christopher Bell is the favorite heading into Loudon, which also, I mean, it makes sense because Christopher Bell like we saw it at Phoenix. We saw what that car could do at Phoenix, but we're seeing it everywhere. Last week at Iowa, another short flat track, wrecked his primary car, still came back and had one of the best cars, backup cars. North Wilkesboro had a great car. That team has figured something out on these short flat tracks, and if they can just have a race weekend without any issues, Christopher Bell can run away with this. What do you think about, were you surprised that Truex isn't the favorite according to Sportsbook? Some of them have even Hamlin ahead of Truex as far as the odds go.
I'm not surprised. I think Christopher Bell clearly should be the favorite. I would go as far as to say clearly should be the favorite. Let's list off the reasons why. Well, he's been the best at short flats this year. It's not really close. How strong that car was at Phoenix. He had the best car at Phoenix. Remember he did that test, the preseason test. And I was just gushing over Christopher Bell for Phoenix. And then he, of course, won the race. Really good at Richmond. Obviously had problems at Martinsville. The best car at Gateway for sure. And then had engine issues.
Yep.
And would have probably been the best car at Iowa if they didn't have all these tire issues that put him in a backup into the rear and probably made him play it safer on tires. So I think he's clearly the best in the short flats right now. In New Hampshire, I would argue he's been as good, if not better than Truex in the next gen era. And certainly during his time at Joe Gibbs Racing, if we go back to 2021 as well. Is a second place finish, is a first place finish. And last year, I think he had the second best car. Some might argue maybe Almirola did or somebody else, but I think Bell had the second best car. He just got screwed by his pit crew. And remember, he now has that Ty Gibbs pit crew from last year. So he has one of the best pit crews in all of NASCAR right now. They are firing on all cylinders, that pit crew, and gaining him spots in every stop, it seems. We look at the Xfinity Series. He won all 3 of his starts at New Hampshire in Xfinity. We look at the Truck Series. He won his second start in the Truck Series at New Hampshire, and his first start in the Truck Series in New Hampshire, he finished second. This is his track. This is Christopher Bell's track. He should be the race favorite. PJ Walsh wrote him up at 5-1 to win the race. I haven't run my model, so I haven't bet anything yet other than betting Byron because he was stupid long. And I didn't need a model for that, but I haven't bet anything, but I would consider, without looking at my model, which again, I haven't run. I've been doing the Euros and stuff, and I'm normally off on Mondays anyway. But I did work a bit on Monday because Wednesday is Juneteenth. It's federal holiday. So Action Network is off on Wednesday technically. But I'm going to run my cup model on Wednesday anyway. Just for myself so that I have a chance to look at odds. But I would be shocked if Bell wasn't the favorite in my model, and I wouldn't be shocked if I end up betting him at 4.5-1 right now, just depending on what the model says.
Yeah, he like I said, whatever that team has found on these short flat tracks, it's not going away. That speed isn't going away. We're seeing it every single time they come to this type of track. I've always been a big things don't really change with this next gen car, and that's why I like Truex a lot this week. But you have to, to me, they're Bell is the favorite. Truex is right there as well. I think they're both going to be very, very strong. And just depends who.
Of all the shorter, flatter tracks, if we take the 4 traditional ones, New Hampshire, Martinsville, Phoenix, and Richmond, if we add in now Iowa, which we don't really have much track history for, if we add in Gateway, even if we consider Nashville kind of shortish, flattish, of those 7 tracks, Martinsville and New Hampshire are the 2 where track history matters the most. Richmond, it does, but New Hampshire and Martinsville are even stronger. So this is definitely a track history track.
This opens up this is a perfect move into what I was going to bring up. So you and I both bet William Byron 20-1 when it opened at Bet365 20-1.
Yeah, I know.
William Byron does not have a top 10 finish at New Hampshire ever.
Correct.
And and I did not hesitate to bet William Byron 20-1. That is like, I don't care what track we're at. I'm betting William Byron 20-1.
Correct. Because he's
Also coming off,
he's always going to be over 5%. Like, I don't care.
Right.
To win.
Yeah. Not to mention, like I said, I think Hendrick Motorsports has found something on these short flat tracks as well. You know, you look last week at Iowa, Larson, absolute rocket ship. Byron was right there all night, as was Chase Elliott. They were top 3 all night in speed, average running position, everything. So if that translates over here again to New Hampshire, could certainly see it would not take much for William Byron to get a career best finish here at New Hampshire. But I will note, you know, I saw some people betting Larson earlier this week, which he opened at plus 850, which, you know, obviously if it's like Kyle Larson opening at plus 850 at pretty much anywhere, it's another one of those, yeah, you bet it.
He opened 10
Does it
Superbook.
He opened 10?
Mm-hmm.
Damn. And I was like, in my head, I'm like thinking, why? I did not realize he has only led 22 laps in his entire career here, but he has 5 finishes inside the top 3 in 13 career starts.
Yeah.
So it's like he's just looking for that. It's like he's right on the edge, and he's just waiting for that breakout race. It's kind of like Ryan Blaney at Richmond. Every single time we go there, it's like, when are you finally going to figure it all out and it's all going to come together?
I disagree with that, because Blaney has never been like right on the edge at Richmond until recently. But Larson, his whole career, has been right on the edge at New Hampshire. His rookie year, he finished 3rd. He finished 2nd in 2017 at New Hampshire. Right. So like, he's always been right there. Whereas Blaney, it's only been like the last 2 or 3 years at Richmond. Before that, Blaney, I don't think ever had like a top 10 at Richmond. Right. Like, he wasn't even sniffing the front.
Right. I'm just saying, like, in the overall, like, it's completely different scenarios. Like, one, we're talking about winning a race and dominating a race. Whereas one, we're talking about just.
I liken this more to like those guys we've talked about, like Larson or Reddick or Briscoe, but with a Martinsville. We're like,
yeah,
you got to do it a few times before you win.
Right.
You know, you got to be good a few times before you win. I think that's where Larson's ready to win here. So I don't hate it. Plus 850, 10-1. I haven't, again, run my model, so I haven't bet anything other than obviously Byron at such a long number. So that's it. Like, I don't. Yeah, Larson's track history isn't good enough for me to just be like, okay, I'm going to bet 850. I'm going to bet 10-1. It's fine. It's good, but it's not good enough. And
it's still Kyle.
To your
like, it's
point
still
about
Kyle
Byron,
Larson.
though, to your point about Byron, because his track history isn't as good, quote unquote. Well, finished 3rd in the Xfinity Series in New Hampshire. He won and dominated the truck race that he ran at New Hampshire. Those are his 2 non-Cup races. In the Cup Series, it always seems like they run New Hampshire when Hendrick Motorsports is in that summer lull and when Byron is testing, right? So like, we don't always
that factors into it as well.
Yeah, we always don't get his best or Hendrick's best when they come to New Hampshire. But like you said, they have kind of turned it up on these short flat tracks lately. Maybe they're not having the Hendrick lull right now that they sometimes do have.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. And last year we definitely saw it at this time. Like, they were clearly down on speed. It was very apparent. I'm not seeing that this year. If anything, I'm thinking, you know, I think Joe Gibbs Racing kind of found a little bit more speed there at like a couple weeks before Charlotte, and then, you know, transferred over like in that area that we typically talk about. I kind of feel like maybe Gibbs kind of regressed a little bit in terms of speed. Whereas I kind of thought they were going to pull away, you know, and it was going to create that gap where Hendrick would then have the lull because there was going to be that gap. But I'm not seeing that happen this time.
No, Hendrick's
but definitely
super good lately. I mean, if we just look at, obviously Larson has 2 wins in the past 6 races, and that includes missing a race. So we go past 7 races, he has 3 top 2 finishes. Chase Elliott,
he could have easily won last week.
Yeah. Chase Elliott has 4 top 5s in the last 7 races and a 7th place finish in there, plus a 12th and 13th. Byron might be the lowest performing relative to his expectations, yet he still has a second, sixth, and a third in the last 5 races, with a stage win at Charlotte. And again, second most recent weekend here at Iowa, which is another short flat track. And obviously Alex Bowman has been consistently 5th to 8th place pretty much the whole past 2 months. So I don't see the drop off for Hendrick Motorsports at this time of year that we often see. So I do think Byron is potentially in line for his first top 10 finish at New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully, for our pockets, he gets the win, and we hit him at 20-1. But yeah, definitely that's my, heading into this race weekend, that is my main what I'm watching. I'm seeing if Hendrick has speed at a track where they've struggled at a little bit recently, but we only visit here once a year, so it's very small sample size. We have 2 races in the next gen car, and then once again, is Joe Gibbs Racing going to be as good as they typically are here? But we can't not talk about the Fords either. Keselowski has been stupid good here at New Hampshire his entire career, really. Top 10 in like 15 of the last 19 races here or something stupid like that. 5th and 7th in the next gen car. But my eyes now, like it's someone that we mentioned before, talked about a little bit before, is the SHR cars. Specifically, I want to see how Josh Berry does this year, because Harvick was so good here with Childers. And like I said, I feel like Josh Berry and that team are just finding their groove right now. And then obviously Chase Briscoe, always a contender on these shorter flat tracks. But what are your thoughts on Josh Berry, heading into this race weekend?
Yeah. This is an interesting one because we don't have a great sample on him at New Hampshire, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
In the Xfinity Series, he finished 17th, finished 31st, which is obviously DNF problems, and he finished 8th, all with Junior Motorsports. But those aren't the finishes you're looking for from Josh Berry.
Right.
With Junior Motorsports, you're looking for top 3s and 5s when you're running for Junior Motorsports. And, he won at Martinsville, which is a shorter, flatter track. He's had some other good, strong performances at shorter, flatter tracks. And obviously this year he's had good performances at some shorter, flatter tracks. At 7th at Iowa most recently, was really strong at Richmond. He finished 11th. So he's had some good performances where he can run inside the top 10. But I think that's where he'll be with New Hampshire. It's probably going to be a good track for him where he can run inside the top 10. But I think that's all we're looking at with Josh Berry. I don't think he's a contender.
What do you and then obviously we can't count out the Penske cars now, because suddenly,
and Joey
Blaney
Logano's
has a win.
Great here.
Yeah. Joey Logano's always been really good here. Blaney, short flat tracks, we know how he does here. Yeah. Logano, single digit finishes, like I think in over half of his career starts here. You go back, he's he only has 2 wins here, 2014 and 2009. But yeah, 3 top 5s is
second here last year.
Mm-hmm.
The 2021 was the year of the rain race, where they threw the green flag, and then a couple laps in it started raining and they didn't throw the caution right away or whatever it was. And like Hamlin and Busch and Truex and Logano wrecked, and like they all, I think Logano came from back 2 laps down, finished 4th in that race. May have arguably had a better car than Almirola, who ended up winning that race. So Logano is so good here. And then the year before that, he finished 4th as well. Like 3 of his last 4 races at New Hampshire are top 5 finishes.
Top 5s. Yep.
If not being a top 3 or 4 car in those races.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at, obviously Richmond has a lot more wear and tear on the tires than somewhere like New Hampshire does. But again, it's another short flat track. Arguably, Logano had one of the best cars at Richmond, finished 2nd. Struggled a little bit at Phoenix earlier this year, but he's kind of like, Phoenix has kind of had his number lately, but 5th at Gateway, 6th at Iowa. Like, yeah, Logano definitely should be strong here once again. Another guy that, switching gears here a little bit, going back to the Toyota camp, 2 very good races here in the next gen car. Bubba Wallace finished 8th last year, 3rd in 2022. PJ Walsh wrote him up for a top 10 finish at plus 220. I assume you like that as well, because I know I do.
Yeah, I like that. I messaged PJ. I was like, obviously I haven't run my model or anything, but I think I will be telling you on this once I get around to running my model. And I'm sure I'll get a worse price, but that's just the price I'm paying right now for doing the Euros, the soccer, competition, the tournament for the European Championship. NASCAR is a little bit on the back burner for the next week or two, and that's okay. That's just part of my job is to do multiple sports.
I think last I checked, it was still available, so I don't think you're going to miss out on the plus 220. Lines really haven't moved early in the week. Like Bell's kind of gotten a little bit shorter, and Truex has gotten a little bit longer at books. But other than that, lines really haven't moved, which I was surprised. But this is also one of those tracks where I feel like books are very confident in the numbers. Like Iowa last week, like you tweeted about it especially after that first practice session. It's almost like books were scared to put out anything because they didn't know what to make of it, and
yeah, well, that was actually going to be my whine about it, which we haven't done, but
right.
Was that like, why are you scared of posting lines? Like, just post lines and bettors will bet into it, and that'll help you shape your market.
Exactly. Which, I mean, we might as well just get into wine about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I got my wine here. I guess we did forget about that. I can't believe we did. This might be the first time I ever forgot.
I'd make sure we got it in there. But wine about it, presented by RotoBaller Wines. I am having their passion peach, 13% alcohol by volume. And again, I didn't bring a cup, so I'll just have a sip right near the microphone, ASMR style. I'll swish it around here in the bottle. The peach is delicious. I really like it.
Tastes like peachos.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but I do like it. In fact, I had to have a second swig here. I like it that much. But yeah, I just don't understand. Like every other race this whole season, and this is actually also, it's going to be kind of a two-part wine about it. Every other race this whole season, we get lines after practice, after qualifying, after whatever it ends up being. And very often they're condensed weekends where you have practice and you go right into qualifying. But like after Sonoma, after practice, all the books posted lines. They weren't afraid, and we had that same 50-minute practice session because of the repave. I believe it was Sonoma, wasn't it? Whichever one, there was another one we had a 50-minute practice session recently. I think it was Sonoma. But yeah.
That sounds right.
And so
yeah, because it wasn't Gateway.
We had a whole day of post-practice lines, and then Iowa happens, and books are just like afraid. Like nobody, not Superbook, not Circa, not the ones that are like even the sharper books didn't have lines. And I think Caesars the next day eventually posted some lines without like all their other stuff, like the top 10s and top 5s or whatever. But the whole point is like, what are you afraid of? Just post something, set your limits low, and let people bet into it. Like it makes no sense. And Circa, I love Circa. I think they're a great. They're a way sportsbook should be run. My only complaint about them is, and I think this is more of a last year and a half thing. Ever since their guy who set their NASCAR lines left originally, now they just kind of wait for everybody to post lines. They always have, but they're not as independent. Like they're so much closer to all the other books, whereas they used to be so much more different, so much more independent. And I think that was a testament to, I think it was Metcalf who would set their NASCAR lines. And I noticed since he's left, they kind of just wait for all the books to post, and they mostly, not completely, but mostly just fall in line with all the other books. And like, even Circa, who keeps limits low. No, I shouldn't say low. I mean, like they're still taking $10,000 a pop on NFL early week, but then by the end of the week, they're taking $100,000, $200,000 a pop on NFL, right? They do it the right way. just open some fucking lines up with like $300 limits or whatever, and have people bet into it and then increase your limits. But nobody posted anything. It's so dumb. But part of that is also on NASCAR because we don't keep getting these 50-minute practice sessions. And look how good the 50-minute practice sessions have been for us. Not even as better. I'm saying as a community.
Why do you think?
Imagine if we just went green with no practice or limited practice, and everybody starts popping tires.
Right. Exactly. That's why there was not tire issues during the race. Was because of that.
I understand it's because we went to a new track and we probably aren't going to be popping tires elsewhere. But look at Bristol.
Mm-hmm.
We had cording issues at Bristol. Like if we had a 50-minute practice session and teams got to make a long run, we would have seen that at Bristol in practice. We don't need 3 practice sessions, 3-hour-long practice sessions like we used to have. Those days are gone, right. And they're never coming back, and I'm fine with that. We need one 50-minute practice session every week so that we being the community, drivers, teams, everybody, media, can see what's happening, can ask questions about what's happening, see if there's performance issues. It just makes everything better. We go to, Daytona or something, and Kyle Larson they forget to remove something from his car and his engine blows in like lap 1 of a Daytona race because we don't even practice. We don't even qualify. It's like,
right.
Man, we need a 50-minute practice session for, I wouldn't say every race. Like we don't need a 50-minute practice session for Daytona 500, but at least something to shake down the cars for the 500. I'd be fine with. Well, I guess for the 500, obviously we get the duels and everything, but even then, something to shake down the cars before the duels. And at other super speedway races, we don't need a full practice, but give us 10, 15, 20 minutes to shake down the cars at those races. And then at all the others, give us that 45, 50-minute practice session. And so it's a 2-part. Like part 1 is the books being afraid to set lines because they didn't know how to. But the only reason that happened is because we had a 50-minute practice session where things started happening and they didn't know how to react to it because we don't have that enough. So it's like a double whine about it.
And again, it goes back to, I think I whined about this previously this year. The reason that we have these stupid group practices is because they want to be able to interview the drivers during the practices. So they have half of them off the track at a time. Just give us a fucking practice session. Give us a normal practice session. And like you said, if we would have had one at Bristol, we wouldn't have the tire issues. And I firmly believe that's why we did not have as many tire issues during the race at Iowa, because they had that long practice session. They were able to kind of figure things out. But yeah, it was weird. It was very weird because I probably drained my battery. I should look at like my stats for my battery on Saturday, because I'm like, when is anybody going to post anything? It reminded me of like when NFL season starts, because NFL season starts, they're not putting any time into NASCAR, and they'll throw them up like whenever there's time. Like there's always a delay once that starts. But yeah, at Iowa, it was interesting, and lines definitely moved quite a bit after they reopened them because of how stuff got bet. And I don't know how books did on the race, but yeah, it was weird. You kind of sparked my mental note of my whine about it. Okay, I'll say my original whine about it, and then I'll go to the one that you just sparked, because my original whine about it's kind of petty. By the way, I'm drinking the Passion Orange Mimosa once again because it's my favorite.
The GOAT, yeah.
It's so good. So good.
But to be fair, RotoBaller has like 3 GOAT wines or 4 GOAT wines.
They're so good. God, man. If I could recommend any alcoholic drink to anybody, 1, it would be this Passion Orange Mimosa, and 2, Surfside Lemonades. They are my absolute favorite drink of the summer right now. But this is still a clear number 1.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always the bourbon barrel-aged red ones, whether it's the Cab or the the Merlot, or whichever ones that are bourbon barrel-aged Pinots. I don't think the Pinot, but I think I think it was a cab and a Merlot or something else. The bourbon barrel red ones, and then the mimosa is so good.
Yeah.
Obviously the what's it called, the rain, the passion, the purple, no, not rain, just the purple.
Just purple now. Yep.
Yeah.
Just purple. Yeah, you can't go wrong with most of these wines. And you'll definitely find one that you like. But check them out, luvabella.com. The brew kettle as well.
Yes.
But my wine about it, it would not be fair for me to constantly criticize Fox's broadcast without also mentioning, and this is so nitpicky because, like I said, NBC did a very good job with the broadcast. But when I was looking at the running order, there would be random. This is probably my OCD coming out too. There would be random names that they'd have the first letter of the first name. Like they had J.H. Nemechek. There's no other Nemechek in the field. You can just put Nemechek.
Yeah.
Like no one's going to confuse it. Zane Smith, they had Z Smith. There's no other Smith in the field.
Right.
And then Austin Dillon, they had A. Dillon, which obviously, like Ty Dillon's racing this weekend at New Hampshire, but he wasn't racing last weekend.
Yeah.
So, like I said, very minor
for
thing.
those because there are people who be like, "Oh man, John Nemechek or Joe Nemechek still racing? What?" Or, "Oh man, Chandler Smith is racing because he's racing the Cup Series this year. I think like for the 500 or something, or tried to qualify." So it's the same thing with like Ty Dillon. He's raced in the Cup Series this year. So I get it, but yeah, when there's only one, it doesn't need to be there. But I do think it is done for the much more casual fan who tunes in much less frequently. But I'm still with you. It's not necessary. It's not.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other names in the field that would fall under that category. Like obviously Bush, but it'd both be K Bush. Anyway, so that's very minor wine about it. Now my bigger one. Why could they not change the rules of qualifying at Iowa? Because of how the practice or the qualifying session was set up, and it was everybody make 2 laps and then the fastest laps. But we're still going to use the groups to determine, because Group B got it. Like there was no way that Group A was going to win the pole. It was Group B was going to be top 5. Group A, like the track, the times were so different. Like you look at the starting lineup, the speeds from the starting lineup. There's like a second difference between, the 11th and 12th place starters because the rows are set,
which is a good thing because we that was last year. It would have been all of Group A starting ahead of, or all of Group B starting ahead of all of Group A. So it's better that they go row by row for between the groups. But they should have just done that in this particular case with 1 through 10 as well.
Yeah, and like I forget who it was. I think it was Christopher Bell that just said like it's complete bullshit that they do that. But also like I'm kind of kicking myself for not just looking at the groups like that and then just betting like the group, like not even considering bet. I didn't bet any qualifying bets, but looking at the Group B and just betting,
especially seeing how practice went, where the track just got better and better and better.
Yeah. So yeah, those are my very minor wine ballots. I don't have much to complain about. Even Rick Allen's first week, I don't have much bad to say about him, which is
I will say the broadcast sorely missed Dale Jr. He brings so much energy and passion to that broadcast. And Letarte, God love him, but he obviously was not having his best weekend because he was dealing with laryngitis. So Dale Jr. was sorely missed. They brought in Dale Jarrett. I thought it was a nice touch, but I mean, the guy's really old. But he's great. He's fine. He's smart. He's still sharp. He's got it all. It's just it's not the same energy. And we're going into this changing landscape of broadcasting. Next year there's going to be 5 different services, networks. I don't even know what to call things these days. And IndyCar just got a new honestly, big shout outs to IndyCar. Every single race and
On Fox.
both Indy 500 qualifying days on network, on Fox. Over the air, Fox. You can get with your antenna.
How did they? To me, that's just a slap in the face to NASCAR. How does NASCAR not negotiate that same deal?
I kind of agree, yeah. But maybe networks aren't willing to shell out that money for NASCAR just because there's so many more races and it's more prestigious. So they have to pay more for the TV rights and all that stuff. So it becomes more piecemeal with NASCAR. But it's monstrous for IndyCar. There are drawbacks like practice and qualifying will now, instead of being in Peacock, which you're paying $6 a month for, will be on FS1 or FS2. So you have to have some kind of cable package or YouTube TV type thing, or the new streaming service that's coming out, which will have like Fox and ESPN and some other networks I think it's called like Venu. But that's going to be like, I think it's like $60 a month. It's fucking ridiculous, right? So there are some drawbacks.
You're not going to pay that for practice.
For the diehard fans like me, where you want practice and qualifying and everything, on-demand replays like we have right now with Peacock. There will be drawbacks to that. But I think the trade-off is worth it. And with NASCAR, we're going to this, Dale Jr. is going to commentate races next year for, was it Amazon? He's a Jeff Bezos employee now. But it's great, but it's only a small fraction of the races, like 5 or 6 races of the whole season. I need more Dale Jr. Obviously, he doesn't want to do half a season like he had been doing, and it's his 100% his right. But we miss it, man. We miss it in the booth. He is that good in the booth. And, like you said, NBC overall way improved from Fox on the production side of things, but I actually find the commentary side of things to maybe not so far yet be an upgrade.
I think Harvick brought a lot too. You need guys that are newly out of the cars that understand these new cars that can better explain it to people.
And I think Burton and Boyer both are newly out as well. I know Burton's less newly, but still newly. Like, he's not like Dale Jarrett old. So they're all fine. I don't have, like, Boyer is kind of annoying sometimes and just like
over the top.
Get it, yeah. But like, I definitely Harvick improved the broadcast for Fox this year. I think in some ways in terms of the commentary, but in NBC's I think has regressed without having Dale Jr. plus Letarte having laryngitis. So I'm willing to give more chances there, given the circumstances. But I would like more from the NBC commentary side of things, because Rick Allen's Rick Allen. He's annoying as hell. And Burton's fine, but he doesn't really bring a lot of energy. And Letarte is great with the analytics and stuff, and he can get pretty energetic, but it's not quite the same without. It's definitely not the same without Dale Jr.
I will say I was a little bit surprised that the very first race on NBC was on USA. And this week's race is on USA as well. And then we get NBC with Nashville and Chicago. I figured we might get the first race on NBC, but it was also a Sunday night, so that probably factored into it as well. I'm sure NBC has their main lineup there on Sunday nights. But yeah, so we got the USA Today 301 at New Hampshire this weekend. Who else do you have your eye on? Like I said before, Daniel Suarez plus 500 for a top 10 is catching my eye. I think I like that. I think I might end up betting that.
Yeah, I don't hate
you
that.
You go back to his. I mean, he was always decent here when he was with Joe Gibbs Racing. Back in 2017, his rookie year, a couple of top 10s there. Finished 9th here in 2022 with Trackhouse, and then was decent last year. Finished 16th, 8th in Stage 1. I think I like that Suarez, and if I'm betting on Daniel Suarez, I have to really like it because I hate him as a person. Shout out to him for becoming a U.S. citizen today, though.
Yeah. Oh, big shout outs. And for correcting other U.S. citizens on Twitter about their English and their civics. I love that. So,
You know what's funny is
yeah, but like,
you
go ahead.
You sent me that. Oh, he's plus 550 now. You sent me that tweet. I had to log into my other account to look at it because he still has me blocked.
Oh, damn. But yeah, no, congratulations, Daniel Suarez. I like 550 number. I haven't bet it yet. Like I said, I'm running my model on Wednesday, which we're recording Tuesday night. How can you not like Todd Gilliland 10-1 after he just pulled off a 12th at Iowa and how he's been running all year? And this is one of his best track types. And, Todd Gilliland hasn't had great results here, which I think is part of what's keeping that number long is the track history. But this is 2024. He's having his best year ever. 8 spots better in the points than he was the previous 2 years. So if he's 8 spots better than his New Hampshire average, that's a 15th place finish. Should a guy who's averaging a 15th place be 10-1? No. Plus, he's also just running better overall. And look at his New Hampshire results outside of the Cup Series. 3rd in the Truck Series in his one race there. It was his rookie year where he only made a handful of starts. Made 6 starts all year with Kyle Busch Motorsports. K&N in 2016, he finished 2nd in New Hampshire. 2017, he finished 1st at New Hampshire. And that's it. So we don't really have a relevant sample size on Todd Gilliland here. I probably will just go back to the top 10 on Todd Gilliland at 10-1 when I run my model, but that's definitely something I'm looking at. Aside from that, I'm a little interested in not Eric Jones, but potentially fading Eric Jones or somebody like that because and John Hunter Nemechek. By the way, shout out to John Hunter Nemechek. Bob Pockris shirt.
That's funny.
After the fight at North Wilkesboro, where Bob Pockris had that infamous freeze frame of him with his face being caught up in the fight. John Hunter Nemechek presented Bob with a shirt, and the demand was so high for other people to get that shirt that he presented Bob that they decided to make those shirts, and 100% of the profits go to charity. So that's good. So I got my shirt. So thank you, John Hunter Nemechek. Thank you, Bob Pockris, for being caught up in the middle of a fight. But Legacy Motors Club has just not been very good. Like the point where they're almost fade worthy.
Yeah, and I especially in qualifying, like they've been absolute dog shit in qualifying, and they kind of get it. They kind of find a little bit of speed on race days, but yeah, I read somewhere where they did not want the help of JGR or 2311. They wanted to figure Toyota out themselves, and they're struggling. And it's going to be some growing pains for them, but that's the decision they made. I have an interesting bet that I might like.
All ears.
Harrison Burton's finishing position is set at 28.5 on Caesars, and I think I like the under.
Yeah. You have to like the under there.
By the way, shout out to Caesar Sportsbook for fucking awful app.
This is like the 3rd or 4th time it's happened this year where it's like over under finishing position and they just don't have an actual name listed until you click on like the alternate view of it.
Yeah, I have to put it in my bet card. But yeah, Harrison Burton's at 28.5. When you look at driver rating, this is actually like a decent track for him, a little bit better than average. 2 finishes here, 20th and 26th. Obviously the Penske cars and by satellite Wood Brothers Racing, pretty good at short flat tracks. I just don't know if I can bet on Harrison Burton. But he is doing decent lately. 20th at Iowa, 25th at Sonoma, 22nd at Darlington. It's still. This is what makes NASCAR betting so fun, though, because I'm going to sit here and bet on a shit box to finish 28th or better. And I'm going to love it.
Exactly. That's all part of it. I'm not on it myself. Again, 100% of everything I can say right now is I haven't run my model, and I need a model as a starting point. Like it's
Right.
the same with the soccer projections. Like I can't just bet soccer because even though I might know the sport or NFL, I might know the sport. I still need to be grounded in the numbers because then you let your biases take over. So I don't want
Yep.
my biases to take over until I've run a model that is independent of my biases because I don't choose anything that goes in the model. The model chooses it all itself based off statistical algorithms. And it served me well for a decade, other than this year, I guess. But a lot of it's been bad luck this year. So yeah, it's just one of those things where I don't have the will to bet until I've run something. And I feel good. Like I said, I feel good about New Hampshire. I feel good about the fact that it's a relatively, I shouldn't even say relatively, it's definitely on the higher side of predictability. Um, I just need to run the numbers. So
Mhm.
haven't done anything yet with with New Hampshire at this point in time. But yeah, I haven't like seen anything that's been like super eye catching outside
Huh.
of the early Byron stuff, like where I have to bet this. Model be damned. Um, so yeah, that's just
Yeah,
kind of
that
where I stand with everything.
that Byron line got quickly corrected. He's down to 12 at DraftKings right now.
Wow. Yeah.
Said he opened at 20 on 365. So going further down in some of these, mid and longer tier guys. Chastain's sitting there at 30-1. Um, Busher's at 35. Kyle Busch, who's been really, really good at New Hampshire's at 45. I could maybe bite there. He's had some bad luck in the next gen era, but this has been a really good track for him throughout his career.
Yep. It definitely has been.
And that would satisfy my need for just another wrench thrown into these playoffs if he comes out and gets a win.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, yeah, he used to be like just a constant. You knew he was finishing single digits at New Hampshire, and like I said, he's ran some bad luck lately, but hasn't had really a lack of speed these last couple of years. So someone to keep an eye on there. Here's a question for you though: Do you think any of these longer shots actually have a chance to win this race? Someone like a Chase Briscoe at 100-1.
Yeah, I think I shouldn't say Josh Berry doesn't have a chance to win the race, but I don't like him at his odds. But Chase Briscoe,
Yeah.
yeah, I like that. It's kind of the Eric Almirola mold. Like it's pretty darn rare, especially at New Hampshire. But if you get the right circumstances, if you get a little rain where the drivers end up wrecking, wrecking out all the
Right.
favorites because they hit the rain the first, that kind of stuff. Yeah, you can have something like that happen. But I think this is overall a pretty darn chalky race. Yeah, I just don't really see it outside of the big name drivers. I was kind of looking through the past few races, even at just like stage finishes. You don't get a lot of like random names in the stage finishes. Austin Dillon finished ninth last year. Michael McDowell had a 10th place stage finish last year. Suarez had an 8th place stage finish if you want to go like more mid tier. But other than that, it's like all the big names. You go 2 years ago, same thing. Uh, pretty much all big names in the both stages and inside the top 10. Again, Suarez pulling off a ninth place finish, that kind of stuff. It's like decent maybe track for Daniel Suarez, like we've talked about. You go 3 years ago, the year that Almirola won and all the rain happened. You still look at the top 10. It's Blaney, Keselowski, Elliott, Harvick, Reddick, Bell, Hamlin, Chastain, Matt DiBenedetto, but that was a Wood Brothers car, and I think he's a lot better than Harrison Burton. Kyle Larson was stage 1. Stage 2, Keselowski, Harvick, Blaney, Hamlin, Almirola, Elliott, Larson, Reddick, Chastain, Kurt Busch. Like, all big names. It's just big names finishing up front here or running up front. Very few middle, especially beyond middle tier names ending up inside the top 10 in stages or finishes.
couple looking at a couple more Caesars random odds. Number of Fords in the top 10 is set at 2.5. And the under is at plus 180.
It's a tough one. This
That
is a
is
really good
because
this is a really good track for Toyota. Chevy, I think, like we talked about, especially with Hendrick, can make gains here than from past couple years. But then we have our Logano's. We have the Stewart Haas guys who are always have the
because you have to
Keselowski.
you have to assume Blaney and Logano are going to be top 10 or fringe top 10, and then you have Keselowski who's always maybe we don't. Okay. I take that back. Keselowski, I think, is a very solid top 10 this week.
Yes.
And then I think Logano's there as well. Blaney might be more fringe.
Yeah. I think Blaney's a back half of top 10 guy. But then you always have a Barry, a Gregson, a Priest,
Briscoe,
a Busher, a Gilliland,
Todd Gilliland,
a McDowell. Like, it's not as easy as it sounds. Justin Haley, right? Like, at this point, we have to consider the fact that he could pop off a top 10 at these type of tracks.
I'll tell you what, though, I don't mind number of Toyotas in the top 10 over 3.5.
I don't mind that either, because
minus 105,
and barring craziness.
I'm actually surprised the under in this is favored. The under's at minus 125. Over's at minus 105.
Yeah, I think I like the over there, but again, need to run the model. But I do think I like the over there.
I'm trying to find just top 10 lines on here, but I can't find it for Caesars. I got top 3. That's it. But I think that's going to get us to our picks to win in 36 for 36. Unless you got anything else.
I'm looking at the number of Toyotas in the top 10 the last few years. 4 last year, 1, 2, 3, 4 the year before. So both next gen years, 4. 1, 2 in 2021, but Truex, Hamlin, Busch all wrecked in the rain. Yet Hamlin still came back for a 10th place finish. And I definitely think Truex and Busch had top 10 cars that rain race. So I don't think that's really fair to use 2021. Plus, they had fewer Toyotas then and fewer good Toyotas then, because Bubba Wallace wasn't that 2311 was a new team in 2021. So yeah, I think Toyota over 3.5 top 10 is pretty good.
You know what's interesting? Oh, never mind. So they got Chevy at 3.5. The under is plus 160. Ford 2.5. The under is plus 180. And then they have Toyota line set at 3.5. That only adds up to 9.5. Is that how it's supposed to? Is that how that's all supposed to be? 9. I thought.
No, it adds up to 10.5.
No, it doesn't.
Plus 3 plus 2 is 9, and then you add the 3 halves is 10.5.
No, it's 3.5, 3.5, and 2.5.
Oh, 3.5, 3.5, and 2.5. Oh, sorry. I said 4.5. Yeah. So
no.
exactly. Yeah.
No.
That adds up to 9.5.
Is it supposed to be that though? Isn't it supposed to be 10.5?
Well, it depends on which way the juice is.
Oh, it's plus 130 for Chevy, not plus 160. But the unders are plus 130, plus 180, and then minus 1. Couldn't you just bet all the unders and be good?
Potentially, yeah, potentially. I think so. Because the unders are plus money, but they're already leaving room to. Well, they're leaving room to have more with only it adding up to 9.5. So that's why the unders are plus money. I'd have to do the math because we're trying to do it on the fly, but I think it's okay.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I'm. Yeah. I thought there might have been an opportunity there to bet for free.
If it adds up to 9.5, they're leaving room for the over, but they're juicing the over.
Yeah. Yep.
On aggregate, they're juicing the over. Yeah. So I think it's fine.
Yep. But yeah, my turn to go first this week with picks to win. And the 36 for 36, which is going to get interesting because we're down to both of us don't have many throwaway drivers left. There's one guy that you have.
Track.
I know it's not a throwaway track. Pick to win. I'm going to be nice, Nick, and I'm going to leave you Christopher Bell. I'm going Martin Truex Jr. Got my Truex shirt on right now. Exactly. I knew you would. I got Truex.
I did think about Larson if you took Bell.
Yeah.
But
no, I figured I'll give you Bell. I have Truex in my head all week. I think he finally gets it done.
You literally can't argue against Martin Truex Jr. It's not possible.
Right. All right. So I got Truex. You got Bell. Now we move on to 36 for 36. So we both had Todd Gilliland last week, which ended up being very good for us. We got 20.
Before this, what was our stats from last week on picks to win?
Oh, you had Logano who finished 6th, and I had Keselowski who finished 10th.
And our averages on the year?
Averages finishes for the year now. You are at 10.118, and I am at 11.824.
Nice. Still
I am struggling. I have one top 5 in the last 5 races. Actually, you have 0 top 5s in that same span. So
exactly.
But you also have the last 5 races you have picked 6th, 7th, 12th, and 6th.
I'm 6th to 12th place guy right now.
Yeah, you're the Ross Chastain or Alex Bowman right now.
Yeah, exactly. I was literally gonna say that. I'm Chastain and Bowman right now, and you're Todd Gilliland right now.
Yeah,
which is not a
exactly
bad thing. I'm just saying, like, that's where you're kind of hovering the last 5 races.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, go ahead. 36 for 36.
All right, 36 for 36. Oh man, this is tough. Like you said, this is not a throwaway week. Honestly, to me, I'm either going Truex or Bell here. There's nobody else in my mind that I can go with my guys left that I would feel comfortable going with at New Hampshire. I was hoping I still had Josh Berry. If I had Josh Berry, I'd consider using Josh Berry this week. I don't. You do. So I'm going, give me Martin Truex Jr. And I'm burning my Truex. And I'm rolling with it. Like I said, I think I've had Truex in my mind all week. I'm sticking with it. His best track. Desperate for a win. I know Christopher Bell is going to have a fucking rocket ship, but I'm going Truex. Truex is going to be going for the win. I'm happy with it.
Chris Bell's going to be going for the win.
I know. I don't know if I want to burn a Bell here.
I will say, I think stage 1 can get interesting. If we look at the stage lengths, I'm pulling it up right now. Stage 1 is 70 laps, so they don't need to pit in stage 1. But if we get, like we had with Iowa, a caution 20 laps before the stage ends, you're going to see some guys who want a playoff point staying out. And we saw that with Brad Keselowski and Daniel Suarez at Iowa. They tried to stay out and hold on to that stage point or finishing first in the stage to get the playoff point, because those are 2 guys I think could really, now that they're locked in, could really use a playoff point. So when we get to stage bets after practice and qualifying, keep those names in mind. Keselowski, Suarez, you might get them 40, 50 to 1 to win a stage. And if we get that perfectly timed caution, they could stay out while everybody else pits and win the stage. So just something to keep in mind before I get to my pick here. But yeah, I think Bell's in it to win it. Truex obviously in it to win it. Truex doesn't have a win, but he's not in the Ty Gibbs scenario where he's at risk of, being bumped out of the playoffs right now. Even though 2 races ago we didn't think Ty Gibbs was either, but yeah. And to be honest, Truex hasn't had great finishes at all in the last 5 races. I mean, he's
going to win this weekend.
Lead a month ago.
I guess the Jordan jinx is already on Byron, so don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. So for me, it's like, okay, do I take Bell or do I take Truex? And I look at where are these drivers good at? Where can I play them? Bell, I could play at Phoenix. I wouldn't feel terrible about that at all, especially given how good he was earlier this year at Phoenix. And he's more, I think, even though Truex is ahead of him in points, I think Bell's had a lot of bad luck, and I think Bell's been better this year overall in terms of speed. So if I'm looking at Truex and Bell, specifically those 2 drivers, it's okay, where else can I use them? I think I have more spots to use Bell than I have to use Truex. But also, I'm behind you. I'm behind you in points. And in similar drivers, shared drivers, I'm behind you as well. So it's not a fun spot to be for me right now. So I don't know what to do. I legitimately don't know what to do, because it should be between these 2 drivers. And it is between these 2 drivers for me. It's just, which one do I go with? And I don't have a correct answer here.
It's tough, ain't it?
It is. It's super tough. If I go to my track quality metric, which is, I think a good one to use, and I sort by driver, Bell and Truex. The number 1 is Truex at Sonoma, but the second is Bell at New Hampshire. Third is Truex at Richmond. I could use Truex at Richmond too. All right, I'm going Bell. Going Bell. I gotta differentiate, and I forgot about Richmond. I can use Truex, so that's a big one.
Yep. Had the best car there earlier this year.
Yeah, that's a huge one. I really like that. Okay, I feel great about this now. So I'm going Bell. You're going Truex.
You got him. You got him backwards there.
Oh,
you got him backwards.
Yeah, I did. Damn it. Format, strike through, make it red. All right. This will be interesting.
It will be.
You might get an edge in stage points, though. I know Truex is going for the win, but if he really wanted to solidify himself, if we get that Suarez situation, Truex could be one that stays out just to grab 8, 9, 10 stage points and feel really secure in the points. And just do it for stage 1, he still would have a chance to win. You know what I'm saying?
Did you consider Bubba this weekend?
I did not, but I do like that pick. I feel like I have to go Truex or Bell.
That's where I'm at too.
Bubba, I mean, you got super speedways or drafting tracks with Bubba. You have Kansas 2, Vegas 2 with Bubba. There's plenty of tracks where we can still use Bubba, I think. Heck, I don't know, but I could potentially consider Bubba Wallace for like Pocono, Indy. He is great at those big flat tracks.
Mm-hmm.
He historically has been, actually, I'm probably banking Bubba for Indy or Pocono. Finished, look at his finishes. 9th at Indy in a petty car. 3rd at Indy in a petty car. 5th at Pocono in that down year for like the first year of 2311. And then in the next January, 8th and 11th at Pocono.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good track type for Bubba Wallace, is these big flat tracks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going through the guys you have left. I'm like, Bubba could be in play here. I'm still a little spurned from Bubba and his lack of performance at Kansas, but
Yeah.
all right, we're both using a stud this week at New Hampshire. See if you can make up some ground. I'm still 40 points ahead of you. It's a long way to go though.
Yep.
I'll have to tweet out a screenshot of our spreadsheet so people can see, where we're at and who we all have left.
Well, it'll be fun next year when we hopefully can open it up to a bunch of people, because this is so fun to do every week.
Yeah. It's such a strategy and just constant. And plus, like, with how, like, everything changed. Like, I used Justin Haley at Atlanta. Now I wish I had him now, where he's actually, like, running legitimately top 15. Like, I got 17 points out of him out of Atlanta, but it just shows you how much shit changes over the course of a season.
Yep. Well, we did a great job this past weekend with Todd Gilliland. We nailed that. I know
that was a good pick.
I know it was air quote only 28 points, but it was 28 points for a guy who's 20th in the standings, and it's his 3rd most points on the season.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good. If you can get a guy, if you could pick each driver the week they have one of their 5 best points races on the year, you would dominate 36 for 36. It wouldn't be close. So getting a guy in a top 3 or 5 week for him once the season's all said and done is huge for us with Gilliland.
Mm-hmm. Well, I haven't picked Bell yet, and you haven't picked Truex, so we'll both be establishing the mark to beat when it comes to the comparing drivers.
That's right.
All right. Well, I don't got anything else for New Hampshire. Do you?
No, I sure don't. It's I'm honestly, I think New Hampshire gets a bad rap. I think it's a good racetrack. I enjoy the racing at New Hampshire.
I'm kind of it's one of those mediocre. Like, I don't mind it, but I don't think it's great.
I don't think it's great. I just think it's fine. I think it's good. Like, it's not a bad race. I look forward to New Hampshire, A, because it's predictable, and I feel a lot better about predictable races. But B, like, New Hampshire has variable banking. You can run multiple grooves here. And it hasn't been the problem child of short flat tracks in the next gen era.
I know people get mad at, like, when a race is dominated by one guy, and we see that a lot at New Hampshire, but I just feel like there are so many times where a car and a team just hit on the setup here where
exactly.
Just, like, we're gonna have these.
Dominating a race doesn't make something bad if you're dominant because you're the best. It's when somebody dominates a race and the 2nd or 3rd or 4th place car just can't pass and get to the front when they're the best car. But if you're at New Hampshire and you're just consistently pulling out 2-3 seconds and nobody's even near you, that's different. That's a different story.
Right.
And we could see that in the lead, but, like, you also see passes for the lead at New Hampshire. You see drivers making ground. I think this is a good racetrack. I really do. I think it's a good racetrack. I can't remember complaining about a New Hampshire race, it just being an absolute stinker, other than
The rain one.
the restrictor plate race.
Oh yeah, and the rain where they let him start in the rain.
No, I love that race. Eric Almirola won. He was 80-1.
I hated it because
That was an amazing race. And Logano was gaining ground, and Christopher Bell was gaining on Eric Almirola at the end there. But then Almirola was like Bell was better in the mid run and started gaining Almirola. But then Almirola at the very end was better than Bell, like on the super long run. I thought that was a really good race. Honestly, I thought that was a great race.
they called that one due to darkness, didn't they?
Yeah, they like shortened it to darkness, and people were like, "Well, if they had let it go longer, Bell would have won." I was like, "No, Almirola started pulling away again." Like I know Bell was closing, but in the last like 3 laps, Almirola pulled away again. So I don't think the fact that it was like shortened by 7 laps or whatever it was, 8 laps, made a difference. I think Almirola had that in the bag anyway. But I thought that was a great race. I really did. I even though there was the rain and all that stuff, like the actual race, like Logano drove through the goddamn field 2 laps down. I thought it was a really good race. Yeah, I like New Hampshire. I don't think it's like the most exciting. I'm not saying I'm a track that like is in my top 3 or 5 or anything like that. But I think it produces good racing. Like I think you can make passes. You know, and good cars win because they're good, and I like that.
Yeah, to me, it's like it's not bad. So, yeah. and I go into these races knowing what to expect.
When we talk about the next gen struggles at short flat tracks, we haven't been talking about New Hampshire.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, we'll see. Hopefully, I mean, obviously, you know, Iowa exceeded our expectations. Sonoma kind of exceeded our expectations. So we're on a pretty good streak here of where we thought, you know, this part of the schedule would be like, you know, maybe a couple crappy races. We're not really getting that. You know, Gateway, we had the drama at Gateway with Blaney running out on the last lap. So we're on New Hampshire, and then we got Nashville and then Chicago Street Course. So good set of races here. But yeah, good luck to everybody this weekend.
I'm like super curious, and I won't hold the show any longer here, but I'll tweet it out tomorrow after the podcast releases. But I'm gonna look up where New Hampshire falls in the good race poll, because I don't think it's like, you know, aside from 1 or 2 clunkers, I think it's probably pretty good in the good race poll in terms of like, it's never going to appear near the top, but I don't think it appears at the bottom very much either. So I'll tweet that out after the show, but I'm not going to hold us up any longer.
All right. Well, thanks for everybody tuning in to the live. Hopefully the audio recorded. If not, we might be without.
We might be doing
without
an
actual
live. Yeah.
Yeah, I might have to find a way to get the audio out of there or something, but we'll see how this works. Like I said, 1 week of no technical issues would be amazing, but we'll see. All right. Thank you, everybody, and good luck this weekend.